And the first topic is about mass lease-end. The mass lease-end is an action available in the batch type workflow mass transition. It can be applied for a large selection, of course, and it allows performing the step of lease-end. It can only be triggered if all the postings, all the periodical posting are done up to that point. We will go through the details, and I hope that you will include this step in your month-end process. As I was saying, this is part of the batch type workflow mass transition that you have available. What I'm showing right now, and if you see more than you have in your version, was there a question? No. Okay. No. Is because what we're presenting is based on our latest version, which is 2022 R2. So I do have more batch type available. So part of the workflow mass transition, the action you will see is among the last one. You will see the lease-end. This will move the status from active to lease-end. Very important. This can only be triggered if all the periodic postings for that particular item are done.
Catalina, there is a question actually from Marathon about what version are these features that we're going over today applicable to?
So the version that I'm using for demo purposes, it is the latest version, 2022 R2. However, the lease-end is available ever since 2021 R2. If I'm not mistaken. So this was introduced some version ago. So you should be able to see it. The only feature that is available in the latest, that is an addition to the latest version, is the mass casualty. For mass lease-end, mass close, and mass lease modification, those were added in past versions.
Okay, and then anybody who's still on-prem, is any of this, they need to go to cloud for this, or some of this?
Certainly, all this, it's not on-prem, yes.
Okay, so hopefully, Alexander, that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
All right. In the filtering capabilities are really similar to all the type of batch that we have available. And as you know, you can make as a large selection as you need, or you can go to specific items such as contracts, AG, master lease agreement, if you know the specific contracts, of course. And once you do that, you can generate the list, and especially for month-end purposes, this is the recommended approach, because this way you can see what is the selection that the system is doing for that particular period. And you can see here you have the export batch items, and you can check those details by actually exporting them. You can, of course, moving forward, you can exclude some, so you can export the Excel file, as you can see here, a selection, but we're going to go through all the steps together in the demo version as well. If you do not want to perform the lease-end on all items, you have the choice of manually selecting them. Of course, if you have a handful of items, but if you have a larger selection, then doing that through an Excel file and importing the batch is the way to go. And once you do that, of course, you can generate the items and run. You can regenerate depending on where you are, or just run if you generated the items before. I'll show you that as well in the demo version as well. So once you do that, of course, the batch will run and you can follow the progress. And then once it's done, and in this particular example, I have 14 items, but if you have hundreds or 1,000, of course, you will need to account for some more time. And then you can export the batch items. You have that green rectangular button available, so you can check those, or you can do some spot checks by going into the action and verifying the end result. Of course, what you are aiming for is that at activation group level, the status has changed to lease-end, like in this example here. And then, of course, you can check from the action center, from the user interface, you can select the activation group that have lease-end status. So this is a specific status. So remember that we talked a little bit about how you can identify the contracts that are expired. As long as the AG is still active, there is no way of doing that through the user interface. However, this type of action in the batch allows you to identify those expired contracts, along with, if you remember, we talked about the other reports, the contract expiration report and the data quality integrity report. And coming back, Alexandra, to your question, these are reports that are available on cloud. They're not available on-prem as well. So I just wanted to make that precision there. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Now we're gonna go to the application and we're gonna walk through these steps together. So let me know now. I can see a little bit the chat. Are there any questions? Am I following to everybody's comments? From the main menu, we're gonna go to batch management. And we can go directly to create batch, or you can go to the list of batches. This is what I'm going to do. And I can choose create new from here. In the batch type, I want to go to workflow mass transition. This is the batch type that has the action for lease-end. And the workflow mass transition, this was available from very early versions, but lease-end, the action lease-end was introduced later. The targeted level is activation group. This is going to be because we perform the lease-end at activation group. We just want to put a name here, and we can say expired contracts or something, but this is just for your own follow-up. The name has little relevance. It's just for future reference. So let's say I'm performing the month end for April, and I already posted my transaction. I done the portion of modification posting transaction, and I just want to see, okay, how many expired contracts do I have for April 2023? For how many should I do the lease-end? So I'm including this in here, and the last two, the second to last option is lease-end. So this is the action that I'm targeting, the lease-end. I'm getting into the filters, and as I was mentioning, the filters are very similar to other filters available for any other batch type. But one point here, if you are in an older version or on-prem, your filters would be probably limited, because we did expand the capabilities of filters with every version. And maybe a little bit of details here. So you have the default filters that allows you to work with the system hierarchy and the cost objects, pretty much going to select the system, and then you can go on and select a specific company, but as easily you can select a lease area, business unit. It really depends on how your structure is built. So here, with the default filters, you can work I'm sorry, you can work with your structure the way you configured it in the backend, but also with the cost objects that are available in every contract, like the cost centers, the profit center, functional areas, if you use them. So these are very useful fields, and as you are creating the contracts, think about how you can group them, because the ultimate goal, of course, and where we would like you to support the most is doing actions in mass, in batch, and having this way of grouping similar items by a certain criteria. So this is a very good way of thinking about the structure, like if you have these elements included in the contract. On the other side, we do offer other options like selecting specific MLAs, for example. You can include here the MLAs that you are targeting, or you can look for them. I know that in a lot of situations you don't have a lot of MLAs. Maybe you have them structured by entity or by company. So this is also a great way of grouping. But if that's not the case, you can go to bulk contract, for example, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because selecting specific contracts, it's not ideal. But if you have the list, you can include the list in here, separated by comma. You can include the list of contracts, and this is similar. If you select bulk activation group, you'll probably need the list, because selecting one by one is not necessarily an option. One point here, if you're going for bulk selection, this being a text field and with the limitation that you all know, for all the application, you have about 1,000 characters. No, not 1,000 characters. You can include about 1,000 items, because there is a limit in characters that you can include. With the type of IDs that we typically support, there is about 1,000 activation group or contracts that you can select. But as I was saying, we do encourage you to make use of the default selection, because in here you can go beyond the 1,000 limitation of a text field. So this is what I'm going to use right now. I'm going to select the system. This is very important, because the configuration, it is at system level. As you know, the system is a grouping of companies with similar configuration. So this is important that you select first the system, and I'm going to select the company. So I'm imagining a situation where the month end is performed at company level. So I've done the events for the month, I've done the periodic posting, and now I want to check how many contracts are expired, are due for lease-end. So at this level, I saved everything, I did my filterings, I selected my action, and you will notice here that I have generate items and run, but because I want to check first, I'm going to select generate items. And these generate items, it is available for any type of batch, and you might want to include it in your procedures as you are performing actions in batch, because it's always good to have a validation beforehand to see what is going on, what is the system picking. So with that, I wanna once the batch is generated, I will see the batch items. This is the one that I want to check. Okay, so this is the selection that the system made. I can check it here in the batch items, and you can see already that I have the little buttons I was talking about before. They're not so little. And what you want to do is export the batch items. Of course, here I have 12 items that the system selected, but you might have in the range of even thousands. So you wanna export them to check them to make sure that it makes sense with the other type of validation that you made beforehand. So I'm doing that, and once the file is available, it's going to appear in my little notification bell here, and it says your file is ready for download. And I'll just have to save it just to take a look at it, but it won't necessarily be the case in your version. This is just a limitation of my Excel settings. All right. So this is the file that the system exported. So I'm just going to make it bigger so everybody can check. So I'll see here the activation group ID and even the name, and I have the status that is ready. So now I can check against other type of validation I did beforehand, whether I checked with the data quality integrity report, or this is what I was expecting, or I use the contract expiration report. Of course, coming back here, I can always exclude some of the items. I can do that as well if I decide, well, this contract I don't want to perform the lease-end just yet, and you will see that it appears disabled. It is no longer with the ready status. And I have here 11 out of 12. So this is also possible, but once again, this manual disabled that I'm doing right now, it's only possible if you have only a few items. But if you have hundreds or thousands, you might want to do that from the Excel file. And once you have your targeted list of contracts that you want to perform lease end on, you can come back here and import the batch items and you will have your list. So hopefully everybody is following me so far. So I'm happy with my list and I can go ahead now and run. I was talking earlier about the fact that you can regenerate the items, you can regenerate and run, or you can run, depending on the stage where you are. So once you have your targeted list, you can run the batch. And of course, depending on how many items you have, once again, I don't have a lot of items here. You can, while the batch is running, you can check the progress, or as you have 1,000, then you can come back a little bit later to see. So this is done. At this point, you can once again export the results to see the full list, for example. So this can be done exactly the same. I'll have the resulting file here in the notification bell. Once it changes to 2, I'll be able to reach out and download it, or I can do some punctual verification. We'll get back to it. It just changed to 2. So I'm going to the AG and I can see the lease end has changed. We have the status changed to lease end. Similarly, as I was saying, I can go and check the file. Can save it so I can take a look at it. And I will see here the details of the batch. I will see once again the AGs, and let me make it bigger. And we have the status done. This is specifically helpful as you have hundreds or thousands. For a handful of items, you can always check directly in the system. So this is the lease-end process, and once that is done, of course, from the landing page, as you go to the activation group, you can also select the contracts that are in lease-end status. So you can do that as well. So now, because there is a specific status, the Action Center is helping you with that.